Exposed, the incredible journey of a woman who transformed after his heartbreaking mistake. In Oak Ridge, secrets rarely stayed buried. The town buzzed like a beehive, each whisper carrying the weight of judgment. And in the center of it all stood Sarah, a 32-year-old single mother, with two beautiful children depending on her. This wasn't just a challenge, it was a battle against the storm that had uprooted their lives. Her husband, a revered veteran, had made a decision that sent shockwaves through the community. Suddenly, the family admired, the woman cherished, was now tainted by his choices. Every word felt like a knife. As she walked through the market square, the glares stung her. Is that Sarah? What happened to her? Distant friends became mere silhouettes of their former selves, casting judgment from the sidelines. The air was heavy with half-glances and pity, an impossible weight. Sarah, a dedicated nurse, poured her heart into helping others, yet here she was, struggling to pick up the pieces of her shattered pride. The dreams she had forged, her children thriving in a loving home, seemed impossibly distant now. But amidst this turmoil, there was Mrs. Thompson, her elderly neighbor. The woman's stories echoed with resilience, tales of heartbreak that had forged her into the loving, wise figure she had become. "Forgiveness starts with you, my dear," she'd whisper. Those words planted a seed of hope, but anger twisted in Sarah's gut. How could she forgive when the town's whispers wrapped around her family like chains? Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now, let's continue. As the annual Oak Ridge Fair approached, the heart of the town would soon pulse with laughter, candy floss, and games. But for Sarah, it represented the perfect battleground, a place to confront the venomous whispers that had crept into her life. The midway, with its bright colors and joyful sounds, felt like a stark contrast to the clouds overshadowing her spirit. She envisioned it as a place to stand tall, to reclaim not just her family's honor, but her own identity. That fateful evening, the fairground was alive, yet an electric tension threaded through the air. Laughter danced around her as she walked deeper into the chaos. She could feel the eyes on her, scrutinizing, judging, and just when she thought she could melt into the crowd, the moment arrived, the moment that would define her future. With a deep breath, Sarah stepped onto the makeshift stage, her heart thundering. She felt the weight of the town's gaze, but amid the noise, all she could hear was her own heartbeat. Would they see her for who she was? Would they recognize her courage in the face of their doubt? The silence that followed was palpable, each breath hanging between them like a fragile thread. The question loomed. Was she a reflection of her husband's mistake, or a woman capable of rising from the ashes? The fair spun around her, holding its breath alongside the anxious townsfolk, leaving Sarah on the edge of transformation. Would she rise, or would she fall? The night was thick with uncertainty, and as laughter rang through the air, so did the unresolved echoes of her journey's beginning. The moment Sarah stood on that stage, time seemed to suspend itself. She could hear the distant sounds of carnival rites creaking and laughter erupting from children clutching cotton candy. Yet for her, it felt like being enveloped in a bubble of silence. She could sense the crowd's anticipation, the weight of their expectations pressing in around her. Confronting their whispers felt like standing before an avalanche, poised to either be crushed or transformed. Sarah, the voice cut through the tension, resonating like thunder. It was Mike, a familiar figure from her past, once a friend, now a stranger cloaked in uncertainty. "Are you okay?" The sincerity in his eyes flooded her with warmth. For a split second, her heart yearned for the connection they had shared before everything fell apart. I am, thank you," she managed, her voice barely rising above a whisper. Perhaps he hadn't judged her like everyone else. Perhaps there was hope in this tangled mess. She cleared her throat, and it felt like breaking glass. "I know you've all gathered here tonight, not just for the fair, but also because of what my family has been through," she began, her words raw with emotion. "I stand before you not just as the wife of a man who made a grave mistake, but as a mother,
a nurse, and a woman. A gasp rippled through the crowd, a mix of surprise and intrigue. For the first time in months, instead of shame, a flicker of pride ignited within her. She took a step closer to the edge of the stage, grounding herself in this moment. I won't pretend it hasn't hurt. The whispers have stung. The judgment has cut deep. But I refuse to let that define my family or me. She clutched the microphone tightly, her knuckles whitening. Forgiveness may seem impossible. Trust is shattered, and my heart is bruised. But I'm learning forgiveness starts here, with me. It's time to break free from the chains of shame and reclaim my life. At that, a slow clap began at the back of the crowd, followed by scattered applause that grew into a thunderous roar. Their acceptance washed over her like a young summer rain, warm and refreshing. But even amidst the surge of encouragement, lingering doubts flickered in her mind. Could she truly forgive him?
Could she step into the future she desperately wanted? As she fought to contain the surge of emotions that threatened to spill over, she noticed a figure emerging from the shadows on the edge of the crowd. David, her husband. His presence jolted her heart, making it race. This was the moment she had to confront him, and the past blurred into the present. "David," she called, her voice trembling, yet stronger than before. The crowd hushed, every eye drawn to the two of them, and for a moment the fair seemed to fade away. He hesitated, as if the weight of his choices hung between them like a taut wire, ready to snap. "Sarah," he began, but she could see the struggle on his face. The townsfolk held their breath, waiting. The moment felt larger than life. "What do you want to say?" she challenged, the heat of anger intermingling with vulnerability. In that instant, everything hung in the balance. Their fractured marriage, the whispers of the crowd, her journey of healing. Would this be a step toward reconciliation, or a plunge back into darkness? As David opened his mouth to speak, the night pulsed with uncertainty, foreshadowing both pain and possible redemption. The choice lay before them, and Sarah's heart raced as the moment of truth arrived. The crowd waited, breaths held. What revelation would follow? "Sarah, David's voice wavered, his eyes darting over the crowd, perhaps searching for a way to escape the weight of the moment. But deep within, he must have known this confrontation was long overdue. She studied him closely, the man who, just a few short months ago, had shattered her world. The man she once loved unconditionally. His face was etched with regret, and something more vulnerable, something that tugged at her heart. It was a glance that whispered, "I'm sorry," even before the words formed. "Don't apologize," she shot back, finding strength in her pain. "You have run from responsibility for too long. This isn't just about you." The words spilled out with an intensity that surprised her, but it was cathartic. Each utterance peeled back the layers of hurt that had built up inside. The crowd shifted, murmurs of disbelief and curiosity rippling through them. Sarah felt their eyes like 1,000 flashlights illuminating every shadow of doubt in her heart. Yet somehow she also felt their support, their belief that she could confront this dark moment. David took a step forward, drawing a steadier breath. "I know I've been a coward, Sarah. I was afraid of hurting you more. I didn't want to face what I had done." "Face what you've done?" she echoed, her voice rising, fueled by adrenaline. "You hurt our family, David. You need to own that." Her eyes locked onto his, unyielding and fierce. Tears shimmered in his eyes, glistening like fragile glass. "I've wanted to tell you how sorry I am. I never wanted to betray the trust we built. I don't expect forgiveness." I just want you to know," he faltered again, emotion crashing through him in waves. The clock ticked loudly in her mind, a reminder that she stood at a crossroads. Could she, after everything, truly listen? She battled between raw hurt and the familiar stirrings of the love they had once shared. "I can't forget what you did. It's not that simple," she said, allowing a moment of vulnerability. The weight of her own words pressed against her chest. "But I refuse to be defined by this pain. I need time." The air was thick with tension,
The crowd collectively breathed in, as if waiting on a climactic resolution. David's gaze softened. "I promise to give you all the time you need. Just let me be here, please." The words hung in the air, delicate and fragile, yet anchored in sincerity. Sarah sensed the desire for redemption in his tone, the longing to protect what little they had left. Could this be the beginning of rebuilding? "Maybe," she said, the word tasting foreign on her tongue. "But it won't be this easy. You'll need to fight for it." The firmness of her voice surprised even her. "We both will." With that simple agreement, there was a shift in the atmosphere. The crowd, still locked in anticipation, seemed to let out a collective sigh. Sarah felt a flicker of hope, a tiny ember ignited within her heart, one that had flickered uncertainly for so long. As they stood locked in an uneasy truce, Sarah could see the glimmer of possibility, a future that might not be perfect, but could be filled with healing and growth. But in the back of her mind lingered an unsettling thought. Was she truly ready to forgive? As they stood there, poised for what lay ahead, Sarah wondered if this was where healing began, or if their journey was just about to take another unexpected turn. Would their reconnected connection be enough to bridge the chasm of betrayal? In the midst of it all, she couldn't help but ponder, was vulnerability the key to their survival, or would it only expose them to more ache? The night stretched out, filled with unspoken questions. The resolution seemed just out of reach. Sarah's heart raced as she looked at David, the man who had caused her so much pain, standing mere feet away. It was like standing on the edge of a cliff, staring into the abyss. She could feel the crowd behind her, a mixture of judgment and support, waiting to see how this moment would unfold. David took a step forward again, breaking the tense silence. "Sarah, I know what I did can't be undone, but I want to show you, through my actions, that I can be the man you deserve, that I'll do the work." Her instinct was to dismiss him, to turn away and walk out, but something stopped her. Perhaps it was the conviction in his voice, or maybe the way he looked so lost, like he could barely hold himself together. "And how do you plan to do that?" she asked, her arms crossed tightly, a protective barrier she didn't want to drop.
"By being here, by listening, by doing whatever it takes to rebuild what we had," he replied, his voice trembling with sincerity. "I know it won't be easy, but if we're going to try, we can start today." His eyes bore into hers, and she felt the heat of his desperation. For a second, she imagined their life before, the laughter, the shared dreams, the love that felt unbreakable. It was intoxicating, but painful. "You can't expect me to just jump back into that. Trust takes time," she warned him again, her voice steady, yet softening. "I'll wait, however long it takes," he said, a tear escaping down his cheek. "Just please let me in. Let me prove that I'm still worthy of your love." The crowd seemed to hold its breath again, the air thick with expectancy. Sarah's heart ached at his words. She had always believed in second chances, but struggled with the fear of repeating the past. What if this was just a fleeting moment of emotion? What if he relapsed into the same mistakes? A shimmering hope danced within her chest, battling against the years of hurt. "I don't want to find myself in the same situation again," she murmured, almost more to herself than to him. "You won't," he insisted, stepping closer. "I promise. I've been working on myself. I've gone to therapy. I'm facing my demons. I want to be a better man for you, for us." She looked deep into his eyes, sensing the truth in his words, but still doubting. "How can I trust that this time will be different?" "I'll show you," he replied, bringing a hand to his heart. "Just let us start with small steps." Sarah swallowed back the wave of emotions. Could she really take that leap of faith after everything? Deep down, something whispered that maybe, just maybe, this was a chance at something better. "It starts with honesty, David. No more secrets. Can you do that?" She felt the weight of her own challenge, allowing a flicker of hope to ignite just enough to keep the darkness at bay. "Absolutely. I'm ready for the truth," he vowed, his voice steady. As the crowd shifted again, Sarah felt the gravity of the moment. In the reflection of David's eyes, she saw a glimmer of what had been lost, but she also felt the specter of doubt lurking behind her. Could she truly break free from past pain to embrace the unknown?
Just as she stood on the brink of a decision, an unexpected voice broke through the tension, drawing everyone's focus. "What if you're making a mistake, Sarah?" The words hit her like a slap in the face, stirring a new whirlwind of emotions. Who had spoken? Was this sudden reminder a warning or an invitation to explore the depths of her own heart? As she turned to find the source, a new wave of uncertainty surged within her like a tide, threatening to sweep away everything she was trying to reconstruct. Sarah's eyes flitted through the crowd, searching for the speaker.
Somewhere amid the faces filled with concern and curiosity, she spotted Mia, her best friend and unwavering advocate, arms crossed defensively. The protective fire in Mia's gaze was a stark contrast to the pleading eyes of David that bore into her. "Why'd you have to say that?" Sarah shot back, half pleading, half accusing. "I was just starting to let myself consider." Mia stepped forward, her voice low but firm. "Because your heart is precious, Sarah. It's not a game. You have to think about what you're really feeling, not just what he's saying." The murmurs from the crowd intensified, each person adding their own layer of judgment or support. Sarah felt the weight of their expectations pressing down on her. Each heartbeat pulsed loudly in her ears. "Look at him," Mia gestured toward David. "He'll say anything to win you back. You know that, right?" "I do," Sarah replied, defiance creeping into her voice, but with every ounce of her strength, she felt the pull of his sincerity. She could see in David's eyes the echoes of his past self and a flicker of hope for the future. "I'm not saying he hasn't changed, but can he really rewrite his mistakes? Can you take on that risk?" Mia pressed, her voice trembling with concern. Sarah's mind raced. Could she truly take this leap? The memory of their happiest moments mingled with the pain that followed, creating a turmoil within her. What was she willing to forgive? What was still worth fighting for? Is it really fair to hold him to a past he's trying to leave behind? Sarah wondered aloud, a question that felt both freeing and suffocating. Mia stepped back, her eyes softened with empathy, recognizing the depth of Sarah's struggle. "I just want you to be sure, to protect your heart, to protect your peace." "Sometimes all we have is the present," David interjected, his voice low and filled with weight. "And now, in this moment, all I want is to earn back your trust. I'm not asking you to forget, but to believe it can be different." A hush fell over the crowd as Sarah's heartbeat quickened. He was raw, standing there without the armor of pretense, simply a man desperate to right his wrongs. "But how will I know you won't hurt me again?" she asked, her voice trembling in frustration. "Because I'll show you," he replied, taking another step closer, his sincerity cutting through the distance. "Trust isn't a switch. It's built slowly through choices, through actions and honesty." The crowd hung in silent solidarity, as if the collective air had gone still, only to be punctuated by Sarah's hesitant breath. She was grappling with this newfound sliver of hope, yet a fear remained close on its heels. What if she opened her heart to a wolf in sheep's clothing? "Sarah," Mia interrupted again, "what do you want? Not what he wants. What do you want?" The question hit her like a tidal wave. She realized she hadn't asked herself that in years. She wanted to feel safe. She wanted to love freely.
She wanted to trust again. But the stark reality was, if she opened that door, she might also invite back the darkness she'd worked so hard to escape. As Sarah stood there, caught between her heart's deepest desire and the fear of her own vulnerability, something else stirred deep inside her, a tenacity she thought she'd lost. The crowd watched, curiosity bubbling amidst the anxious silence. "What if," she began, her voice gathering strength, "what if I need to explore this myself before I can let you in?" David's expression shifted, clouding over with shadows again, but in those few seconds, Sarah felt like she might finally be on the precipice of something transformative. With a growing determination, she turned to the crowd, a new resolve igniting within her. Is it wrong to assert what I need before I make a decision? The murmurs swelled, but Sarah felt liberated. She hadn't closed the door on reconciliation entirely, but she was refusing to let it swing wide open without consideration. Just as she started to gather her thoughts, another voice rang out, sharper and more unsettling than Mia's. "You'll regret it, Sarah. Let him go before it's too late."
Her breath hitched as she spun around. The new wave of panic crested within her. A chill crept through the warmth of their moment, and she felt her heart racing as she asked herself, was holding on truly a regret waiting to happen, or was letting go the first step towards finding herself again? Sarah's heart raced, a wild drumbeat echoing in her ears as the voice cut through the air like a cold knife. She turned, searching for the source, but the crowd remained a swirling mass of judgment and unreadable expressions. Each face bore the weight of their opinions, and in this moment, uncertainty wrapped around her like a heavy cloak. "Who were you to say what I'll regret?" she shot back, unsure whom she was even addressing. The crowd shifted, the tension palpable. Mia shot her a look, a mix of fear and pride. "Sarah," Mia whispered, her fear spilling through clenched teeth, "just take a breath." But breathing felt impossible. Sarah's mind raced, now caught between echoing doubts and the dangerous allure of hope that David offered. A flicker of rage mixed with vulnerability coursed through her. "I'm sick of people trying to decide my fate for me," she exclaimed, her voice louder than she intended. "I need to be the one to choose." David's eyes shone brighter now, a delicate coat of hope glinting amidst the shadows of their shared past. "That's right. You deserve that choice, Sarah, but it's still a choice, and I want to earn my place." "Earn it?" Mia interjected, her tone defensively. "At what cost, David? How many times do we hand out chances just to have them thrown back in our faces?" Sarah felt torn, each friend pulling on her heartstrings in different directions. David's gaze implored her to look deeper, while Mia's protective stance reminded her of the dangers she faced.
It was exhausting, a battle between her past fears and her present desires. "What if I say yes?" Sarah asked, the words tumbling out before she could reconsider. "What if I let you show me that you've changed?" Silence fell over everyone. The crowd held its collective breath. David looked vulnerable yet resolute, ready to bear every piece of himself for her to see. "I will do everything to prove it to you," he promised softly, each word heavy with intention. "But I need you close for that. I can't change from a distance." Her heart danced between hope and anxiety. It was a risk, a leap into a deep unknown. But what if it isn't enough? What if this is just another illusion? The tension twisted in her gut like an uncoiling spring. "I'll never stop trying, Sarah. You have that promise from me," he replied, leaning forward, his sincerity shining through the shadows of their history. The crowd, now a living backdrop to her turmoil, was hushed, their murmurings reduced to whispers. Sarah could feel the weight of their collective gaze, their hopes rising and falling with each word exchanged. This was about more than her. It was about every person watching, living vicariously through her struggle. As her mind raced through the possibilities, she didn't want to lose herself in him again. She felt her walls faltering. "What if I need time?" she finally said, her voice wavering but steady. "Time to understand if we can have a future." David nodded slowly, accepting the conditions she placed, though she could see the flicker of hurt behind his eyes. "Time is something I'm willing to give, for however long it takes." And there it was, the tentative promise of hope woven tightly with uncertainty. Sarah realized that the real journey began here, in this moment of honest vulnerability. She didn't have to have all the answers yet, just the courage to explore them. Then another voice broke through the silence, louder and sharper. "You'll fall apart again, Sarah. This time it will destroy you for good." The sudden disruption sent a shiver down her spine. Fear wormed its way back in, wrapping itself around her heart. How could she quiet those doubts? How could she trust her own instincts when part of her wanted to flee? As fear and uncertainty wrestled within her, Sarah found herself at a crossroads. The stakes felt higher than ever, and the flood of emotions threatened to drown her. Would this leap bring her peace, or lead her back into tumult? With a shaky breath, she confronted her deepest concern. Perhaps the real challenge was learning to trust herself above all else. And in that moment, she realized this was just the beginning of her journey, no matter what lay ahead. As she stood there, engulfed by both support and dissent, the question echoed like a clarion call in her heart. Could she truly embrace the unknown, or would fear always tether her to the past? The air around Sarah felt charged with an unspoken energy, its weight pressing heavily on her shoulders. The voice that had pierced her thoughts came from nowhere and everywhere all at once, echoing in her mind. She turned her focus back to David, whose eyes searched hers as if looking for a way to bridge the chasm that had developed during their absence from each other. "Are you sure you want to do this?" Mia's voice broke through the crowd noise, laced with an edge of concern. "It's dangerous to stir up emotions that have been buried." Sarah nodded slowly, her heart pounding. "I need to know. I can't live in fear of what might happen." David reached for her hand, the warmth of his palm igniting something inside her. "I promise to be different. I want to show you the person I've become." She held his gaze, absorbing every tremor of sincerity etched across his features. There was still a part of her, buried deep, that wanted to scream at him, to ask how long the change would really last. But the flicker of hope that danced before her eyes refused to be snuffed out. "All right," she whispered, feeling a mix of dread and exhilaration wash over her. "Let's see if you can do it." The crowd shifted slightly, like a wave responding to a breeze, eyes glued to them, sending a silent prayer for the inevitable bond to remain intact. Yet amidst this brewing hope, the cold sting of doubt still lingered in the corners of her heart. As she and David stepped closer together, the noise of the crowd faded, creating a bubble around them. In that moment of intimacy, she felt both exhilarated and terrified. What if she made the wrong choice? "I'll take my time," she added, her voice back to a steady determination. "I won't rush into this." David lifted her hand to his lips, brushing against her skin softly. "Time is all I need. I'm willing to wait for you." But then impatience surged through her like a wildfire. What did it mean to take her time? Was it merely dragging her feet, or was it an opportunity to dig deeper into the reasons behind her hesitation? As she engaged with those thoughts, the crowd's whispers began again, folding into her consciousness. "He's going to hurt her again," a voice murmured, rooted in disbelief. "Don't be foolish, Sarah. Just walk away now," another echoed. Each word was a stone thrown into her pond of emotions, creating ripples of fear that collided with her hope. She didn't want to retreat. She had fought too hard for this moment, yet the truth was, doubt clung to her like a shadow. What if they're right? What if this is a mistake? David squeezed her hand, reading the worry in her eyes. "I'll fight for you, Sarah. You're not alone." In that instant, she felt the tense threads of uncertainty thickening, but she couldn't shut herself away, not when the chance for real connection was finally within reach. Heart racing, she leaned in closer, feeling the warmth of David's presence. "Then let's fight together."
With the decision made, she took a deep breath, allowing herself to break free from the shackles of the past, even if only slightly. As the chatter of the crowd faded into the comforting background, she turned her face toward the future. But just as she began to bask in the fragile glow of hope, a sharp voice sliced through once more. "You think this is truly love? You're just afraid to be alone." Her breath hitched. Was her fear of solitude clouding her judgment? The doubt loomed large, suffocating and relentless. As she searched for certainty, she knew she had a choice to make once again. Could she disentangle herself from the echoes of judgment and trust in what lay ahead? Or would she allow the fear of loneliness to seal her fate? As Sarah stood on the threshold of her heart's decision, the question burned within her. Could acceptance of love mean losing herself, or would it finally set her free? The whispers lapped at her like waves against the shore, each one sending a chill through her spine. Sarah felt the ground beneath her shift, the emotional landscape trembling as she stood at this crossroads. The crowd had formed its judgment and audience to her inner turmoil. But here, in the aftermath of that sting, David's grip on her hand felt like a life raft in a sea of uncertainty. "Forget them," David said, his voice low but steady against the cacophony of doubts. "This is about us, not them." She locked eyes with him, searching for the resolution she so desperately wanted to find. "But what if they see something I can't?" The words slipped out before she could rein them in, the panic surfacing like a wave crashing over her. David leaned in closer, his brow furrowing with concern. "We can't let their fears influence our choices. We owe it to ourselves to figure this out." As he spoke, the warmth of his breath brushed against her cheek, pulling her from the clutches of the crowd's judgment. She marveled at how the simplest touch could cut through the noise, grounding her amidst chaos. David might have made mistakes, but there was an undeniable truth in the present moment. She needed this.
his presence, the chance at something more. "Okay," she breathed, feeling fragile yet resolved. "I'll try, but it has to be real. No more empty promises." A flicker of determination ignited in David's eyes. "That's all I want too. This will be different. I won't rush you. We'll take it step by step." The crowd murmured, curiosity igniting amongst the onlookers. They were waiting for the spectacle, caught between disbelief and hope. Sarah recognized the tension, her words now constructing a fragile path forward. They hung in the air, suspended between certainty and doubt. "I want to believe in us, David," she said, "but every story has its scars. I can't pretend those don't exist." "I know," he replied, his voice steady and soothing, "but we can't let the past dictate our future. Let's create our own story, one that shows we can overcome."
He took a step closer, their noses just inches apart. "Please, let me show you." Time slowed as the world blurred around them. In that moment, all that existed was Sarah and David. She felt the flutter of her heart, the thrill mingling with fear. This was a leap, a divine chance to rewrite everything she thought she knew about love. But as she leaned in, something flickered across her mind. The voice of dissent spoke again, louder this time, a taunting whisper that echoed through her thoughts. "What if he's just like before? What if you're setting yourself up for more pain?" The weight of those unasked questions pressed down on her, suffocating the fragile hope she held. She pulled away slightly, searching David's expression for reassurance. "I don't know if I can do it." His eyes softened, wrapping around her like a warm blanket. "You don't have to hold all this alone. I'm here, no matter what." She closed her eyes for just a moment, inhaling deeply as uncertainty flickered around them. Maybe, just maybe, she could tread this path with him rather than walk alone through the shadows. But even as she felt the pull of potential, the tug of fear still lurked beneath the surface. Taking a breath, she opened her eyes and whispered, "Then show me what love means, but please, don't let it be a lie." As they stood there, suspended in vulnerability, Sarah realized that love wasn't just about joy. It was about revealing the depths of themselves, together, forging through the fear that had carved deep grooves in their hearts. But would David be able to withstand the pressure? Could he prove that transformation was possible, or would their story join the ranks of all the broken ones? With every beat of her heart, the weight of choice hung thick in the air. And in that moment of tentative hope, she understood one thing. It was time to embrace the unknown, even if it terrified her. As she took a shaky step closer, she glimpsed the hint of a future filled with possibilities. Yet shadows loomed just beyond. Would past mistakes cast them into darkness again, or could they rise, stronger and unbroken, into the light? The moment hung between them, suspended like a cobweb glistening in the morning light. Sarah's pulse quickened, a battleground of emotions raging within. She glanced at David, the man who stood before her, hope wrapped in uncertainty. If only he could see the doubt she felt clawing at her. "How do we begin?" she asked, her voice trembling slightly. She craved guidance, a roadmap through this tangled mess of feelings. David tilted his head, a faint smile breaking through, as if he'd been waiting for this moment all along. "We start by trusting each other," he said, his sincerity shining through every word. "Trust is fragile, but once it's built, it can weather the fiercest storms." His words resonated deep within, yet brought forth a nagging fear. How could trust be rebuilt on ground so shaky? Still, she nodded, feeling the heat in her cheeks, a small gesture, but one that carried the weight of her resolution. "Okay, let's trust." There was something magical in that moment, a soft exhale of possibility, shared only between them. David stepped back slightly, giving her space, as if sensing the need to give her an air of freedom to breathe in. The crowd, once judgmental and probing, felt miles away now. It was just them, surrounded by a cloud of soft whispers that spoke of change. But then, a voice cut through the fragile atmosphere, a familiar one.
Sarah turned to see Mia, her best friend, threading her way through the crowd, her expression a mix of concern and disbelief. The moment locked with tension. "Are you serious, Sarah? You can't just jump back in with him. Look what he did." Mia's words crashed around her, sharp like shards of broken glass. Each syllable felt like a heavy anchor pulling her back to fear's hold. Sarah's heart sank for a moment, the walls of uncertainty rising again, wrapping her in familiar chains. She felt exposed, a raw nerve in the midst of a healing scar. With her gaze flickering back to David, she saw him watching, unwavering. His presence steadied her, even as doubts swirled in her mind. This wasn't just about David. It was about her, too, her journey toward reclaiming joy. "Mia," Sarah started, knowing this moment was integral. "I can't live based on what happened before. I need to find my own way. It might hurt, but keeping him at arm's length won't heal my scars." Mia hesitated, her brows knitting together. "But—" "No buts. This is my choice," Sarah declared, surprising even herself with the strength in her voice. The crowd shifted, the whispering momentarily fading, hanging on her words. Turning back to David, she felt lighter, liberated by her own admission. "Will you stay, David?" He nodded, looking relieved and determined, ready to face whatever tide might come. "Always," he replied, stepping closer again, the crowd a soft blur at the edges of her vision. Together, they created a fortress against the world's judgment as Sarah reached for David's hand once more. The warmth surged through her, a tether to newfound hope and possibility. "Let's start today," Sarah whispered, looking deeper into David's eyes. "Together." As they turned away from the murmur of the crowd, stepping into that uncertain light, a flicker of something new ignited between them, a spark that felt like the promise of a transformation. But as they walked forward, a shadow appeared at the edge of the crowd, a figure Sarah hadn't expected to see. The past had just arrived, uninvited, threatening to pull back the curtain and reveal secrets she wasn't ready to face. Could the new path she'd started still hold when the ghosts of yesterday loomed so close? With her heart pounding louder than before, Sarah questioned if her resolution could withstand the oncoming storm, and just how far she would go to protect what they'd begun.
The fairground lights dimmed as the last hues of twilight cascaded over the horizon, wrapping Sarah and David in a blanket of emerging stars. For a moment, they stood together, hand in hand, amid a world filled with uncertainty, yet anchored in each other. But Sarah's heart raced at the thought of that shadow creeping from the edge of the crowd. The familiar figures that approached were reminders of pain, drifting closer like dark clouds before a storm. "Sarah?" A voice broke through the noise, laced with both urgency and nostalgia. It was James, her husband's brother, an unexpected presence that seemed to sway between caring and caution. "James," Sarah said, her breath catching, "what are you doing here?" David's grip tightened around her hand, a silent show of solidarity. "I needed to talk to you," he replied, stepping forward, casting a glance at David. "And I'm sorry for crashing in like this, but things aren't as they seem." "Things?" Sarah questioned, confusion swirling within her. The fairground that had once been alive with laughter now seemed to pulse with tense energy, their moment transformed under scrutiny. "It's about David," James continued, his brow furrowing with concern. "You have to understand what he's been through. The mistakes, they weren't just a moment of weakness. They stemmed from a place of deep struggle." Sarah felt a rush of emotions flood through her. Here was David's past unveiled once more, cloaked in the weight of family ties. James's words wrapped around her like vines, capturing her heart in their grip. "Struggle?" Sarah scoffed, anger bubbling beneath the surface. "This doesn't justify betrayal, James." "I know," he sighed, taking a step closer, desperation etched on his face. "But you don't know the whole story. He's changed since then. He's fighting every day not to return to that darkness." David's eyes held a mix of gratitude and resentment, a tangle of feelings unspoken between them. "I'm tired of hearing excuses," Sarah said firmly, her resolve hardening. "What I need to hear is that he's committed to being better." James nodded, sensing the weight of her challenge. "He is, Sarah. He's been through therapy, confronting everything head on. You've seen the struggle to rebuild. He wants you by his side to fight this battle together." The crowd had begun to quiet down as their eyes began turning toward the unfolding drama. Each gaze was a reminder of judgment interwoven with interest, filling the air thick with anticipation.
Sarah inhaled deeply, grappling with the storm of disappointment swirling in her chest. "David, is it true?" she asked, turning to face him, searching his eyes for a spark of sincerity. "Every word," he confirmed, his voice steady, though she could sense the tension beneath it. "I'm sorry I hurt you, Sarah. I knew that when I fell hard. But I promise, every day I choose to fight through this."
In that instant, Sarah felt the gravity of his struggle and the truth of their shared experience coalescing. It wasn't just about David, but about the road ahead, the journey that demanded both of their hearts. "Then show me the work," she replied, her voice firm yet tender. "Together," he echoed, vulnerability illuminating his gaze. But as another voice whispered from the crowd, her heart sank once more. What if you're just setting yourself up for another fall? Yet this time, Sarah pushed that fear aside, holding on to the knowledge of her own resilience. Yes, there was still uncertainty, a tangle of emotions threatening to unravel at any moment. But now she felt liberated from the shackles of fear. "It's time to take that leap, David," she said, her voice gaining strength. "But this time, we will do it with unwavering commitment. This is about my healing too. I won't live in your shadow anymore." The crowd held its breath as they witnessed the metamorphosis, how Sarah transformed right before their eyes. In her declaration, there was strength. In her vulnerability, there was power. James stepped back, recognizing her resolution. "Then fight for each other," he urged softly. "Don't step back into the shadows. Grasp that light together. Love is a choice, but it's a hard-fought one." They exchanged a glance, a silent agreement forming in the space between them. David spoke next, his voice low yet resolute. "I will show you every day what it means to love freely, to become the man who is worthy of your trust." The swirl of murmured comments drifted around them, but Sarah anchored herself in that moment, refusing to let the outside world define her. "I'm ready," she said, her voice ringing clear and steady. "Together, we are going to build something new, step by step, brick by brick." The applause began to swell, echoing through the fairgrounds as the crowd collectively released the tension that had built. In the middle of the laughter and cheers, Sarah felt something shift deep inside her, a lightness transforming her heart. It wasn't merely about David or their history, but the dawning realization that she was emerging as a new version of herself. Together, they moved through the crowd, hand in hand, stepping into the night, a beacon of hope lit between them as they began to forge their own path. This time, it was filled with understanding, compassion, and the promise of something beautiful waiting to unfold. As they walked into the future, the warm summer breeze enveloped them, a reminder that even the most difficult journeys can lead to remarkable transformations if only we brave the storm and choose to rise. Now, the night held endless possibilities, and as Sarah looked into David's eyes, she felt the spark of hope growing ever stronger. Subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and show your support. Comment your reactions and feelings about the ending. Your voice matters. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this transformation. Let's spread the hope. This is the moment to act. Don't wait, not even one more second. Only true fans understand the power of supporting the channel through these actions.